How's everybody doing today? I hit my camera, so it is off, and that should be back on now. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the show. I am your host, American Lumberjack, and this is TimberTalk, Navigating the Political Force, and we have a great show for you today, and we are glad to be here today with you guys to bring you some truth, some reality, and some goodness. So today, this week's a little bit different, right? Because this is not your typical yay for America, yay for the government. We have some division going on in our country, and because of that, some things are upended. And I'm just gonna real quick mic check. Am I good? Sounds good, looks good. Can everybody see? I'm just checking, making sure everything's coming through nice and clear for everyone, so everyone is able to see and hear as they should. Waiting for the go ahead. Just give me 1 second. All right. So as always, we open in prayer, because if you don't give God any praise, then what are we really doing? And this episode is no different than any others before then. So let's open in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for today. We thank you for this opportunity that we have been blessed with, Lord, to share truth and shed light on dark places, Lord. God, I ask that you continue to bless America and bless those that are watching and their family members, Lord, because we have entered into times that are tough and rough, Lord. We have entered the last days, God, and your word says that you will pour your spirit out upon all flesh in the last days, God. So I ask that you continue to pour your spirit out on to everyone, Lord, so that we can come to know you and get closer to you, Lord. In Jesus' mighty name I pray, amen. So our scripture for today is that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And that is so true, no matter where you spin it, where you look at it, that in reality, there are a lot of people that are walking around that are very double-minded. And to have a double mind means that you're trying to look left and right at the same time, or trying to do and not do at the same time. And that's just not something that functions in reality. And when that thing happens, you start to see things start to fall apart with people and systems and governments around the world. There's a danger when leadership becomes divided, right? Not just politically, but mentally. And when nobody can clearly define the mission, the boundaries, the standard, and the direction, we have a problem. Confusion starts to spread fast, and everybody that isn't on the side of truth or in the know seems to want to fight the system, but in the wrong way. So it really does create problems overall. And maybe that's why this verse fits tonight's episode and why it's going to hit hard as it should. So we always or have started to start the show with a ding dong of the week. And this ding dong suits this verse very, very, very well. No matter how you shake it or spin it, this person right here is double-minded. So let's check them out.
I don't want to be the gotcha trans man. I don't want to be the trans man that people pull up a picture of when they're arguing with conservatives and say, oh, you want this guy in the girls' bathroom? You want someone with a mustache around your little girls? I don't want to pretend like I'm affirmed when someone assumes I'm a trans woman instead of a trans man. Because that means three things. It means, one, trans men are once again invisible. Two, you don't know shit about trans women. Three, I might be in danger. I don't want people to try to affirm me by cutting me out of conversations about misogyny, sexism, oppressive structures, and reproductive rights. I don't want people to say, that's how you know you're a real man. Every time I won't shut up about something, every time I say something that they don't like. I don't want my gender to be used as an insult towards me. That's not affirming, it's just offensive. If God forbid any public bathroom laws here are passed, I don't want it to be expected of me to risk my body's safety by using the women's restroom to make a point to people.
Yeah. That is a double-minded individual if I have ever seen one. And that's sad. That is ultimately sad, and that's where our country's headed as well. There are a lot of very unstable, lost people in this world that continue to live their life in two states of mind. And it's not just the trans people, it's a lot of people. And it's affecting our country in a way that is pushing us more and more towards idiocracy, right? So our first segment of the day, if I can get this to work, it seems to still want to be a pain in the butt today. Our first segment of the day is war powers confusion. So if a double-minded man is unstable in all those ways, then a double-minded system also will be unstable. And we have that instability right here. So Congress has just backed away from a vote that could possibly have put a real screeching halt on the war in Iran, right? And it should have probably happened, but it didn't. And it should have probably happened multiple times under multiple presidents, but it didn't. So the House Republicans canceled a vote on the war powers resolution that was put forth. And this resolution was one that would have forced President Donald Trump to get congressional approval before continuing military action against Iran. Now, I can hear you guys screaming now, what about the War Powers Act of 70s, and what about the Constitution? Well, there's gray area in those. And it's been constantly exploited, not just by Trump, but by multiple presidents. So, and the reason behind this is that why this vote didn't go forward with this particular war powers resolution is there wasn't enough support. And that alone should bother anybody, whether you're Democrat, Republican, in the middle, non-voter, whatever. It should bother anybody that there wasn't support to bring forth clarity in our country, because our country needs a healthy dose of clarity right now. Because according to the Constitution, Congress holds the sole authority to declare war, not the president, right? At least that's what we've been told, what we can read. But because of interpretation, we have the problem that we have now. Here's the issue. The whole thing has become a game, again, of interpretation. You say, I believe, we believe. It's a game of interpretation. So presidents from both parties have stretched military authority for years. And if you pay attention to any war we've had, or conflict rather, because they like using that word conflict. If you paid attention to any conflict we've had all the way back to Vietnam, and even before then, they never really like to declare war, right? But somehow, some way, the president has the ability to send people on to go lose their life for this country and all this other good stuff. And we sit here wondering what's actually going on. Barack Obama did it with Libya. Bill Clinton did it with Kosovo. And now the critics are arguing that Trump is doing the same thing with Iran, which he is. It's not even an argument. He is. And honestly, the deeper problem is that it's not just the presidents, right? Everybody likes to blame the presidents for why what's happening and is happening. Granted, I didn't approve of this war. Just like I didn't approve of what we did with 9/11, our response to 9/11. I think Trump jumped the gun and was puppeted. As much as y'all like to say Trump is not a puppet, he was puppeted or coerced or manipulated into doing what he did, right? But this is not just on the president. It's Congress. It's the Supreme Court. And it's them refusing to create a clear constitutional boundary, or not even create one, but more so make it known. Clarification purposes, right? So the War Powers Act has problems in it, right? The War Powers Act was supposed to limit or be the clarifying thing to the Constitution, right? It created notification requirements, congressional oversight, and a 60-day rule. It was pretty clear, right? But decades later, nobody even fully agrees on whether the law itself is constitutional. Some some say that it's unconstitutional because it prohibits the commander-in-chief, which is just a ceremonial title, from running the military as it should be ran, right? So what happens? Every administration finds a gray area, and every Congress complains about executive power. Doesn't matter whether it's Republican or Democrat. Everybody always gripes and moans about executive authority. What's crazy is the executive has no authority that wasn't delegated to it by Congress. So if Congress doesn't like something, then they should tool it and tailor it to where they can fix the problem without overstepping their bounds, because the executive is a check and balance, as well as the legislative, as well as the judicial. They're checks and balances, so one doesn't have too much power, although Congress does. So while doing almost nothing to permanently clarify this issue, that you run into a bigger issue. And this is where the frustration really sits and starts to boil with most Americans, because if you ask people why America is involved with Iran right now, at this very moment, you get different answers depending on who's speaking. Trump says Iran threatened America, so we got to fight them, and they've been doing it for 40 years. Marco Rubio says focus on nuclear threats, the nuclear threats. We got to stop them from having nuclear threats. While the War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, sits there in front of Congress and talks about stopping Iran's ambitions for nukes. Again, y'all know how I feel about that. You can't stop someone's ambitions without stopping the person that has the ambition. And there are 2 billion Muslims on this planet. So what, are you going to eradicate every person that proclaims Islam as their faith? Or just those in Iran? That's genocide, Pete Hegseth. So you sat before Congress saying that you want to stop ambitions. So we don't have a clear answer or a clear solution on what is actually happening with this administration, with this war in Iran. We don't. And we don't have a clear solution on if we can keep going. If not, do you all remember the global war on terror? Yeah, it wasn't a war. It was a conflict that lasted 22 years. That's a problem, because if the administration cannot clarify or articulate clearly the mission, then eventually the public stops understanding why the conflict exists at all. The same way it happened with the global war on terror. People just completely forgot why we were even there. Oh, reminder, 9/11. Yeah, but why? When are we? I need to know what the mission is, why we're doing it, what the plan is, when it will end, how it will end. That we're owed that as the American people. And we already saw what that confusion looked like during global war on terror, to the extent of it lasted 22 freaking years. Vague objectives. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. Constant mission creep. Meaning, if you don't understand that, the mission was this: go get the weapons of mass destruction, and then it drifted over here into a state of confusion. It makes no sense. This is where Washington keeps failing the people, not just through policy, but through clarity, because war should not operate on a blurry explanation. And that's where it's been at, where they write something down and they erase it, and write something down and erase it. Then they write something down and they erase it. And what ends up happening when you do that is the lines get blurred together. And soon the lead starts to look the same as what's been erased before it. So we don't know what's really going on. So you have these blurry explanations and political maneuverings that don't benefit anyone who wants to know what's going on. And Congress should not hide behind procedural confusion while pretending it has no authority. You have the authority. Congress created the executive, and Congress created the legislative or the judicial branches. And don't think for a second that the Supreme Court is out of responsibility on this. They should have taken what the Constitution says and said, hey, Congress can declare war, and that's it. If Congress said we created this War Powers Act in the 70s, then we're sticking to the 60-day rule. Let's hammer that in and get rid of all gray areas and stop pretending that the standards don't exist, because they do. When you have ambiguity inside war powers, that's dangerous. Doesn't matter whether it's Trump, Obama, Biden, Bush, Clinton, none of them. It doesn't matter. You can't have this ambiguity because it causes people to freak out. It costs us taxpayers. It costs us our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our husbands, our aunts, our uncles, our wives' lives that go overseas to fight. People that came back from this global war on terror still aren't right in the head. But we did it. And I want to know if we're going to be in this situation for 22 years. Because not one time, really it's been longer than 22 years, because every time we go to the Middle East, we stay there for months and months and months and months and years and years and years. And all off of, which I won't really get into, bad information. American lives are not worth what is happening in the sandbox or anywhere else in the world. If you can't clearly and concisely give us information on what's going on, stop telling us that we're going to go do these things. It should be a hard stop. Congress has become so fickle and like money hungry that they don't even know that they are abusing their own power and not using the power that they actually have properly. And that's a problem. And when it comes to speaking of old conflicts like global war on terror, that never fully disappeared and still is existing today. You also have Washington suddenly reopening another chapter, another potential war from decades ago, and this time it's with Cuba. It's freaking Cuba. Cuba's on the chopping block once again, as they have been many other times before, and now we got old wounds being reopened. And in this particular segment here, the United States has gone back 30 years, 1996. And it's raising a lot of questions. If you know anything about this story, you should have a lot of questions. Why are we doing this? And why this particular timing that we're doing this? So, former Cuban leader Raul Castro, along with 5 other Cuban military pilots, have now been indicted over the 1996 shoot-down of 2 civilian aircrafts operated by Miami-based groups, the Miami-based group Brothers to the Rescue. So this is a civilian operation led by Americans that were shot down by the Cuban military. So 4 people were killed when the Cuban fighter jets shot down the 2 planes near international waters. And they were like, hey, you're too close. They didn't give me warnings. They shot them down. So prosecutors are saying that Castro, who served as Cuba's defense minister at the time, authorized the operation. Honestly, I don't want to get too far off track on this, but my mind swirls when I think about this because there's so many ins and outs that I see opening up and closing, and it's mind-blowing. So ultimately why that matters is back in 1996, the indicted people clearly or nearly pushed the U.S.-Cuban relations over the edge with what they did and the actions that they took. It triggered outrage, sanctions, and major escalation and pressure between the United States and Havana, which is the capital of Cuba, right? So now, nearly 3 decades later, the Justice Department is suddenly bringing murder charges up. 30 years later, murder charges. Talk about one stretch of a statute of limitation, right? Granted, you don't really have statute of limitation on murder, but really? Really? And one of the accused pilots is already in U.S. custody after allegedly lying on his immigration paperwork, right? So you let someone who shot down U.S. civilians and took their lives immigrate to the United States. Bravo. And this is causing serious concern in Cuba with these indictments that are coming up. Some people fear that the indictments are not just about justice, and you'd be right. You damn sure would be right that it's not about justice, but they're saying that it's creating justifications for stronger American pressure or even future regime change inside of Cuba. That's the rhetoric that's been spun, right? And honestly, that's a concern that is not hard to understand, and it's very easy to believe with all the things that Trump has been saying. So my problem with this, and I am going to go off topic a little bit, right? My problem with this is that Trump, bro, you're putting too many irons in the fire. We're spinning too many plates at one time, bro. You got Venezuela, you got Iran, you got Ukraine and Russia, you got Libya, you got what's going on in Africa with the Christians being taken out by Muslims, you got Cuba, you got what's going on in our own country with the cartel and trafficking and drugs. You got so much going on. And while America is a big bad fighting machine, bro, you can't keep sticking irons in the fire and try to, in one fell swoop, in 4 years, fix everything. You can't do that. You should be setting up a plan to do it over time, which would ease the stress on America. Hell, they're sending 4,000 troops to Poland. Why? Not only are we starting an issue with Cuba, but we're sending 4,000 troops to Poland. Why? Poland's really close to Russia. Russia, Ukraine, you see where this is going? If America is now going back decades later to pursue military-related deaths, then where exactly does the standard stop? That's a serious question. People immediately started bringing up the USS Liberty. I know I was one of those people, since we were going back in time against war crimes against other nations that hurt America and cost Americans lives. The USS Liberty. Oh, no, you don't remember the USS Liberty? 34 American crew members on that ship, American ship, were killed. Over 170 were injured, and yet nobody was hauled into court over that. We haven't gone back in time to indict the people that did that. So people look at this Cuba case and ask, why now? Why this? And why so selectively are we picking countries to fight with? By the way, for those that don't know, the USS Liberty was attacked by Israel, an American ally, and a bunch of Americans were lost. And then that trope about you don't touch American ships doesn't seem so big and bad now. Every other country that touches American ships get blown to smithereens, except for Israel. They can take American lives and injure Americans willy-nilly and nothing happens. And then say, oh, it's just a mistake. We didn't know who it was. You got this big-ass sign on the side of the ship that says USS Liberty. On both sides, as a matter of fact. How do you not know? Right? This is where government action starts feeling less principled and more strategic, because if the standard is we pursue justice no matter how long ago it happened, then that standard needs to apply evenly. Not only when relations sour or geopolitical priorities shift. While Cuba absolutely deserves scrutiny, and they do because of the evil, heinous things that they've done to the people that live there, digging up 30-year-old military indictments during a rising tension feels less like stability and more like Washington testing new pressure points. Which honestly, does that not exactly claim or calm? That doesn't actually calm your fears, ultimately, is what I'm trying to say, about things that are headed, or the direction we're headed into next. We pull out of one issue with Iran, which Congress can't pull their heads out of their rectums to figure out what's going on there. But we pull out of that, and we slide into something a little closer to home, 90 miles closer to home, to be exact. And what are we going to do? Start an incursion there and then drop some bombs on Cuba? How many innocent Cubans are going to be lost due to this, right? And I know this sounds very liberal-esque. Sound like a liberal. You're a liberal. No, I just care about American lives. And I don't want the world to continue to turn on America because of the actions of a president who really is trying to do too much at once. Again, I agree with a lot of the things he's doing. He's just doing too much at once. And that tends to cause problems in the long run, right? And while old wounds are being reopened internationally, back here at home, one political party is trying to figure out why voters walked away from them at all in the first place. And that's going to slide us into our next topic, which is exploiting weaknesses. Exploiting weaknesses. So the Democrat National Committee, DNC, is up in arms, essentially, and trying to move away from this as fast as possible. But they just released their long-awaited autopsy report of the 2024 election loss, because, they got to do why they lost, because the cheating talk, right? They got to help people understand why they lost, right? And almost immediately, people inside the party started to distance themselves as soon as this thing was released. They were like, yeah, I want no part of that. Look away. Don't stare at it. And that probably tells you a lot right there. If this is supposed to be your smoking gun as to why you lost and why the Republicans cheated or whatever, then why are you looking away from it? You should be running for the hills and screaming from every mountain and every top of every hill about why this is a good thing, right? Well, the report says that Democrats lost major ground with Latino voters, rural voters, working class voters, and voters without college degrees. And suburban and urban people walked away from them as well. It didn't actually reveal why they lost because the Republicans cheated. It revealed why they lost because their focus was too much on making the Republican Party look evil, like Nazis, if you will. It also criticized the parties for focusing too heavily on the black people, right? They lost the votes because they focused too heavily on the black people and the suburban women. Yeah, their messaging was only tailored to a specific group, while losing touch with people worried about border security, inflation, and everyday costs of living. They wanted to focus on the blacks and the suburban housewives, not the people that actually mattered, because border security, inflation, and everyday costs of living was the key to those voters that they lost walking away. So the people they focused on, they lost, and the people they should have been focusing on, they lost as well. So they lost twice. So honestly, most Americans already knew this. I mean, if you had been paying any kind of attention to anything going on in the world, you knew this stuff was already happening. But here's where things get messy, because we got to talk about the mess, right? Everybody loves a little bit of drama, right? Even Democrats inside the party didn't fully trust the report. They talked bad about the report. Some refused to endorse it, right? Others argued it ignored major issues that hurt them, like Biden's age, internal party chaos, and fallout from the Gaza war, and American support for Israel. They ignored those things, right? Despite earlier polling, it ended up showing that those issues really hurt amongst younger people, right? So younger demographics are in every single one of those little groups that they lost. So you got to focus on what the people are actually talking about and not actually demonizing your opponents, right? Even the DNC chair, Ken Martin, admitted the party's brand is in trouble. And that's crazy when your committee chair head is telling you that we're in trouble, right? We're in trouble, Democrats. We got to do something. Yeah, you guys should stop being dumb. But you're not, because you like where you are. And you're going to keep pushing the envelope until you push yourself right on out of political prowess altogether. Now, politically speaking, this should be a giant opportunity for the Republicans, right? you think the Republicans can take this playbook, this gold mine, and use it, right? Because the weaknesses that are sitting right there in front of them is like writing on the wall, right? The concerns are obvious: inflation, cost of living, border security, and working class frustrations. But here's where the dangerous territory starts to become really apparent. Republicans are starting to show signs of drifting into their own version of political chaos, just like the Democrats. And if they are not careful, they are going to inherit the same exact weaknesses that the Democrats just got exploited about, right? This is what drives voters crazy. Parties spend years watching their opposition, and then they fail, right? The opposition fails, and then slowly they adopt the same damn behaviors themselves. Smart people cut out the cancer. These people are over here eating the cancer for dinner. If your opponent is weak anywhere, doesn't matter. If they're weak, you are supposed to expose that weakness, not absorb it, because voters are actually trusting you to do what you say you're going to do, for one, and not fall into the very thing that turns them away from the opposition. And if Republicans cannot stay focused on the issues that are at hand that brought the voters over from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, inflation, stability, cost of living, clarity, as we mentioned earlier, then the political advantage they gained in 2024 will disappear a lot faster than they gained it. And right now, the Republicans think that they're in good, and you're not. The midterms are coming up, bro, and you guys are sucking. You are right down to the pipe, sucking the air right out of the exhaust pipe. That's exactly what you're doing. In a fight, you do not copy the opponent's mistakes. You force them to keep defending. You keep them backpedaling. But you guys are over here like, hey, Democrats, we like this infighting. Democrats, we like this chaos. We're going to adopt some of that ourselves. Oh, inflation? Yeah. We're going to put a little bit of that on there. A lot of people are like, hey, this war is causing inflation. This war is making gas prices go up. And that really should be something they should answer for. Because 80% of our oil that we use for fuel in the United States comes from the United States. Why are our gas prices going up? Granted, they're not as bad as the rest of the world that uses the gas and oil from or the oil that they turn into gas from Iran going through the Strait of Hormuz. That their prices are a lot worse than ours, almost double to 2.5 times more. But why are ours going up so badly? That makes no sense. And that is something that the Republicans need to answer for, because it is a problem. It is a problem that we continue to fall into the same stupid traps year in, year out, year in, year out. And nobody says anything. Nobody says anything. Everybody just sits there, oh, Republicans are right. Democrats are right. Why are we not holding these people accountable? Why are we not pushing these people for clarity and honesty? Why are we just sitting here giving the okay for these people to keep... This is a family-friendly show, so I got to watch my mouth. Giving it to us. We're bending over and just taking it. Why? Why? That's a question you should be asking yourself, and then getting off of your butt and going to do something. And when you speak of Washington struggling to stay aligned, because not even the party, we got Republicans, we got the House, we got the Senate, we got the presidency, and they say we got the court. They're supposed to be nonpartisan, right? They're not supposed to pick sides, but somehow, some way they do. But whatever, I digress. Republicans have it all, but they're not aligned at all. They're not. The government's next major fight is no longer just political. Now it's a technological race and a technological fight. And even inside the administration, nobody seems to fully be able to agree with what's going on and what direction they want to take these things, right? So now we have AI oversight. We have AI oversight. The White House just abruptly postponed President Trump's executive order signing on artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Now, if you guys have been watching Trump, and some of y'all watch him way too hard, but all you see is red, and so you only think about bad things that he says. Oh, he didn't take a pause there in this statement, in this sentence. He's a bad man. Whatever. He held up the devil sign when he moved his hands across the screen. He's a bad man. That's all you focus on. But you need to focus on the things that are happening. I know you guys have been talking about the data centers. And with AI comes more data centers. Now, my personal opinion on these data centers is that they're not data centers at all. They're surveillance centers. And you should be aware of that. But in this particular story, there's some disagreements. And some of the people that disagree in the upper brass, I agree with. Honestly, the reason it feels like the perfect summary of Washington right now, why there's no alignment. Nobody seems to agree on what the actual plan is. What exactly is the plan? And what's going on here with that plan? The administration was preparing to sign a major executive order with the one focus on, or the main focus is, plural, sorry, on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and government coordination with AI companies, right? The proposal would have created a voluntary framework to where the companies would be developing advanced AI systems that would work in conjunction with federal government before releasing it to the public. Now, I know, I don't like that either. I don't think the federal government should have its hands on anything really at all, but there is a cybersecurity and AI race going on, correct? But there's a concern. Powerful AI systems could eventually threaten the United States and the people of the United States. First, it would threaten critical infrastructure. Cybersecurity could be threatened because where there is technology, there are exploits, right? So you got a cybersecurity threat, a national security systems threat, and even military operations threats that pop up. And that's all before it gets to us. But once it gets to us, we're really in trouble, right? So the White House had already invited tech experts, AI leaders, and industry officials in this area to this particular ceremony for the signing. And they were gung-ho. The pen was hot. The pen they had was hot. It was ready to sign. Well, some administration officials, they wanted stronger safeguards and a tighter oversight. And that didn't sit too well with the company people, the corporate people. They argued that AI, the officials argued that the AI national security threat is something that it's a problem that, if left unchecked, would be the downfall of America, right? Meanwhile, on the flip side, Silicon Valley execs and people were like, hey, this is a free market situation. We don't need oversight with free market. We want everybody to have a touch and a taste of this. Well, their argument, too much regulation shows innovation. It slows innovation and puts it on the shelf. And that's true. Regulations are not necessarily a good thing, but it has to be with the government. But the government always regulates things and not themselves like they're supposed to do, right? So Trump went to China, right? And he had big talks with China, right? And China's push right now for their country is a lead in military AI. And overall, the people in the AI sphere, these executive corporations and whatnot, are saying that this is going to give China an advantage in the global AI race. And Trump agrees with that, which is exactly the concern that he is saying shouldn't be the case. And there has to be some type of middle ground, because if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how the section 702 of the act that allowed them to be able to spy on Americans, right, that are talking to someone overseas, and store that information, and if you did something wrong at a later date, that they could use that information against you in the court of law. Yeah, that passed with flying colors to where they didn't have to have warrants for that stuff, and they should have. They should have. Now imagine that regulation being removed from the federal government to having to have warrants or staying away because it was already gone, and then they voted to put it in and they lost. So imagine that regulation being gone, and imagine them being able to have unchecked, no oversight on this AI, which can sift through information in matter of moments, seconds even, depending on how fast the model is. That would hurt us, right? And it seems like we're fighting less and less enemies and more focused on us, the people, in America. And that's a damn problem. That's a problem. So Washington feels like it cannot decide whether AI is a business opportunity, a national security threat, or a government-controlled industry. How about this? How about you create a government section for AI and hire some of these people on and create your own little system and leave the private sector private? Problem solved. You get the best of both worlds. And then the Congress can put heavy regulations on this little AI section that you have in your executive branch, and things will be good. Checks and balances. Problem solved. Now, instead of you trying to check and balance a company, which is a private company, and force them to do what you want. This is a problem, however. With reactive leadership, everybody agrees AI is important, right? Nobody agrees that the actual strategy is bad. Nobody or disagrees rather that the actual strategy is bad, but they all agree that, hey, there's a fine line between too much and not enough, right? And in this case, just take my advice. Create your own government AI section and the problem goes away. No more BS, no more feelings and money and all this other stuff. Now the government and taxpayers can pay for it. We already pay for a bunch of other dumb stuff. Why not throw one more thing in there that actually could be beneficial to the United States? But you have to have the regulations placed on this. Otherwise, it'll get out of hand real quick, fast, in a hurry, right? And that's just my personal opinion on this overall, because I really do believe that AI can be used as a tool to benefit our country. However, when you start having it go unchecked, you really start to run into a major issue in the country where it hurts the people, and the people are tired of being hurt. They really are. There we go. Sorry about that. Personally, I just want clarity. I want people to be forthcoming with the information and not come out with information after the fact, kind of like how the Democrats lied about the FBI being involved in January 6th, right? But we won't get too much into that. But why not just be honest? Why are you lying to the American people? Why are you hiding things from the American people? Omission, by definition, is a lie. But if we, the people, lie to your system, then we get thrown under the jail. That's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be here to protect us, but you're not. And albeit Trump has done a lot of good things for the United States, he's not doing what he should be doing in really dredging up stuff that the federal government is doing wrong and getting people to go in and write into their government officials and even have them removed if necessary to fix the problems that we have going on here. And I don't blame him, because the system has a way of twisting people to suit their narrative. And that's what I really do believe what has happened to Trump, because this is not the same Trump from his first term. Do I believe he's still doing good things? Yes. Do I believe he's still on the right track? Not so much anymore. He shows me glimmers and flickers of light of being on the right track, but until he turns all of his attention back to America, not on the right track at all. Not on the right track at all. And that leads us to the next story of South African refugees. I am so sick and tired of hearing about South African refugees. I'm so sick and tired of hearing it. The White House is now once again pushing to rapidly expand the refugee admissions. Now, my problem with this is, and I'm going off the beaten trail, my problem with this is, Trump, you work so hard to get people out of the country, kind of like Barack Obama did. He worked really hard to get a lot of people out of the country. But then he also worked just as hard to bring certain people in, Somalians, Muslims, and America's feeling that now. We're really feeling that now. The Muslim population has boomed, and those people don't really love America. Cue the chants from 2023 and 2024, Death to America on American campuses across the country, right? But now you're pushing to get rid of a bunch of people, but let's bring these white Afrikaners from South Africa into the United States. And again, on the flip side, I don't really care with the refugees. I don't even know why this is a freaking topic at all and to begin with, because nobody says anything when you bring the Haitians in or the Cubans in. Nobody says anything. Nobody even really said anything about the Ukrainians, but that was under the Biden administration. But Trump wants to bring these white Afrikaners in, and everybody's losing their mind. Oh, you're a racist. You just want to bring them in because they're white. No, he actually wants to bring them in because they're facing persecution. And that's what the refugee program in the United States is for. Anytime that these people are facing natural disaster or persecution or war-torn, you're supposed to bring them here, give them some rest, and then once things settle in, send them back to where they're from. And these white Afrikaners, even though there's not much media coverage on it, are being persecuted. Go look at the surrounding countries around South Africa and what they're telling us. Usually other countries are pretty good at telling the truth. America seems to like to lie on the news a lot. CNN, ABC, MSN, NBC, Fox even as well. They like to lie to the people because it sells ratings. It gets people involved. But these white Afrikaners are being persecuted, and they want to expand the number from 7,500 to 17,500. I don't care. The Democrats and people that don't like this idea are saying, oh, it's going to cost the American people too much money. It's going to cost $100 million. $100 million. And then roughly $5 million-ish a year after that. It's a lot less than what the Democrats were costing the American people with all the illegals they were letting in. $150 billion a year. $154 billion, actually, a year. This is going to cost $5 million a year. That's substantially less. It's the same amount of money in 1980 when we brought over 25,000 Haitians and 125,000, 150,000 total Cubans and Haitians to the United States. $100 million and $5 million a year. Relatively the same. A lot more people, but relatively the same through the refugee program. So why is it a problem when they're lightly melanated, but not a problem when they're brown or black or whatever you want to call them? It's stupid. And the Democrats are playing the race game. Trump's winning these people over here, he says, because they're being persecuted. If that is true, and the information that I looked up corroborates that fact, if that is true, bring them here. These people are farmers. We can benefit from some farmers. Y'all all know Bill Gates is doing the things that he's doing with his fake meat and pushing the fake meat and 3D printed meat and all this other weird stuff. So why not have farmers come over here, kick the Chinese out of our country and off of our farmland? Because I bet y'all didn't know China owns a lot of farmland in the United States, and how they own farmland in the United States is beyond me, but they do. Get them out of here. Get them up out of here and let these white Afrikaners come over here and actually put more food on the American people's table. Or is it a problem that majority of these white Afrikaners, these South Africans, are Christians? Because that's another aspect that you can look at it from. These are Christians. They're white. Oh, God, new narrative from the Democrats. Trump wants to bring over white Christian nationalists and up the numbers, because that's what they're going to do. But I'm just sick and tired of hearing about it. Either let the people come over or shut up about it, because y'all don't complain about the Ukrainians that came over. Hundreds of thousands of them came over. Nobody complained when the Haitians or the Cubans or the Jamaicans come over. So stop complaining about this and let this man just get these people over here, put them to work, and everybody has a good time. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about this. It's frustrating. It really is ultimately frustrating, because that's not really America focused. It can be, it has a potential, but the Democrats should be just as focused on fixing America as the Republicans are, and they're not. They just want to fight Trump tooth and nail in every aspect that they could possibly fight him in. Oh, it's a fly. My apologies. But I want to shift gears a little bit here because I'm done with that story. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to step into something I like to call cultural critique. Specifically, American cultural critique. Everybody knows what happened with the whole Massey situation. Whether you like Massey, hate Massey, want Massey to still be in office or not is irrelevant. I have no feelings towards it either which way. What I do have aught with is why and how he got pushed out of office. Politics are not supposed to be a popularity contest. They're not. And in an arbitrary way, Trump saying this candidate is a problem, get rid of him, really and truly is election interference. And I know, I can hear you now. I thought you support Trump. I do. He's my president. I also supported Biden as a president, even though I didn't vote for him. I've never voted Democrat in my life. And I have had, in the past, a lot of people who voted for Barack Obama twice try to tell me that I'm a liberal and a Democrat now that they chose to vote for Trump. Weird flex. Never voted Democrat in my life. Never would. Local and state, never. But I find it strange that a man tweets or truths or whatever he wants to call it, and somebody loses a political race. That really does boil my insides, because that means you guys have such tribalistic mindsets that you're not able to free think at all, that you're willing to be complicit in overruling liberty. If the man lost, he lost. Big whoop. But my real gripe with this is this. And I can hear it now, but I'm going to say what I want to say because this is my political forest that we walk through. And I'm going to give you truth. But you have these Zionists and pro-Zionists say that we don't have any ability to alter your elections. Why would you say that? While on the flip side, you see them altering our elections. Massey's not pro-Israel. Now Massey loses. Very strange, right? Because he's not pro-Israel, he loses. When did not being pro-something cause you to lose a political race? Why are the Republicans acting like Democrats? Where if you don't totally and unequivocally support everything Trump, MAGA, or Republicans or conservatives say in every way, shape, and form, you're a problem. That's how Democrats act. They want to get, what's the tall, bald guy's name? I can't remember that. That's a Democrat. And he's come across the aisle several times to agree with the Republicans. And that the Democrats wanted to send him up the river. They want to get rid of him because they're saying he's not a true Democrat. He should stand against everything that the Republicans stand for. Tribalistic mindset, right? That's a horrible mindset, right? But the problem here is that just because Massey isn't pro-Israel doesn't mean he hates Israel, doesn't mean he's against Israel. You cannot be pro something and still be for the entity that is the thing that you are. So I'm very pro-America. I am not pro-Israel. Shocker. I am pro-America. Being pro anything outside of America is a problem. You can like things. You can talk about things. That's your liberty to do so. But when you are in a position to make legislation that affects change in America, and you're now not affecting change for America in the sense that you're pro-America, but you're affecting change for another country, that's a problem. Israel has a better quality of life than America, by far. They have a much better quality of life. They live longer than us. That's what that means. They have free education, I don't care about free education, just so you guys know. I don't. I don't think anything should be free, but the Democrats like this, right? That Israel has free education. They have great child care for the mothers when that they get to stay out of work for a long time and it's paid for. They have a overall better quality of health. They have free health care, so free schooling, free health care, all on the dime of America. Why are we making legislation that benefits other countries to have things that people in America want? I don't agree with what the Democrats want, but the people in America want this, but we're giving it to other countries. So Massey lost because Trump tweeted, or Truth or whatever. Yes, John Fetterman, thank you. It was the guy that is a Democrat that comes across the aisle. But he went against Israel. And big bad Israel comes in, and now he loses. And there's a pattern here. He's not the only one. The moment someone gets a whiff of someone not being pro-Israel, that person loses their race. There's a bunch of money funneled into the opponent, right? The opponent of that person. That is a problem. AIPAC shouldn't have the ability to support one person over the other and then that person lose, because that makes it a popularity contest. That makes it about money. And politics should never be about money, because we, the people, should be in control of that. That should be the case, but it's not. It's not. The culture of America should be America. Every other country on the planet is pro their country first. And most of the time, they're pro their country only. Yes, they have allies, but do you see Russia running to help Iran? They're allies. Do you see China running to help Iran? No, they're allies. They're allies, but they're not running to help these people. Why? Because they realize that the conflict Iran is in with America would hurt their countries worse than if they were to help Iran. China would lose trade deals out the wazoo if they came to help Iran. Russia would lose any connections that they have that are good left in America if they went to help Iran. And the sanctions would flow like the rivers of Minnetonka. And neither Russia nor China want that. But their allies are being hurt right now. But you don't see them rushing to help. So why is it that these other nations can be pro their own country, have allies, but not put their country in jeopardy to help their allies? And I'm not saying don't help Israel. However, when it comes at the cost of the American people's tax dollars, the American people's cost of living, because gas is sky high, hadn't come down much yet, but some of us rely on that, right? When inflation happens from helping these people, that is hurting the American people. When American soldiers lose their life, that is hurting the American people. There's mom, dad, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, cousins that are not coming home because we're helping our ally. And for whatever Massey's reason for not supporting Israel, it should not have cost him his election, the primaries. It shouldn't have cost him that. But we see a bunch of AIPAC money, do your research, go into the opponent that beat him in the primaries. You see a president technically affecting an election by tweeting something out. And you're going to see more people lose due to this. That is not how American politics should be. It's not. And the fact that it is a problem, and it's a cultural problem in the United States. We have to break this tribalism. We have to break this off of us so we can see clearly and get back to we, the people of the United States, not we, the Republicans, we, the Democrats, we, the liberals, we, the conservatives, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. There's no union. There's confusion. There's double-mindedness in the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, and the Constitution don't mention either one of them. There needs to be a cultural shift in the United States, or we are doomed. We are doomed. And we'll continue to be doomed. We'll stay doomed. But some of you like that. Some of you want that, right? It's a problem. It is a problem. And it doesn't seem like anybody's going to do anything about it. But I'll inform you. I'll keep you informed. You might not like what I have to say, but I'm going to speak the truth. So help me God. Nothing I've said today has been a lie. You can fact check me if you want. But I just want people to get their heads out of their butts, get their heads out of the rectum of Republicans and the Democrats and the liberals and the conservatives, and start living life as Americans. We need unity. America can't be destroyed on the outside, but we will be destroyed on the inside from stupidity, lasciviousness, sin, division, double-mindedness, instability, left, right, up, down, ABA, whatever you want to call it. Contra code, by the way, if you play Nintendo. I just want America to be better. And we can't get better if we keep this divisiveness. He said, she said, race, sex, gender, all this other words that you like to make up. That's not what America is. There has to be some form of homogeny behind the Constitution, behind what America really stands for, not what we feel, think, or believe. It has been a pleasure to bring you the truth today. I hope you're able to join me next week. I got to figure out if I have a game or not. Hopefully it'll be Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. But I definitely appreciate you guys, and I hope you can navigate the political force with me next week. Have a good one.